Good morning, everyone. It's Brenda Quintana, and I'm live with you this morning. Well, if you're here at 10 a.m. Eastern on a Tuesday, you're live with me. If not, if you're watching the recording, I usually talk for a few minutes before I get into stuff. So if you are watching the recording, please feel free to skip through that if you don't want to hear my blah 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 as I wait for people to get on. Good morning to everyone who's joining me. I'm just gonna wait just a little bit to see if I have some people joining me live. Today I am featuring a card using the Merry Moose bundle, and I love this bundle. I'm a Canadian, I live in the US, but the moose is kind of one of the symbols of Canada. Of course, we have the beaver as well, but the moose is actually on the back of our Canadian quarters, and so it's kind of this iconic animal. It's also an animal that is used a lot in cabin decor. So I really feel like this particular bundle, while I think it's really amazing, I think not a whole bunch of people are going to get it, and I think it's going to retire. It will probably even sell out before the end of the holiday catalog period, or at least the punch will sell out. And so if you're interested in this bundle, I would get it sooner rather than later, because this in particular the moose punch, I don't know if it's going to carry over. It might, but there's a lot of other cute stuff in the catalog, and this one might not be the first one someone picks right for Christmas, thinking they might be able to get it later. But the problem with some of these really specialty ones that like is a moose, that isn't something that Stampin' Up normally does. Those are the things that will definitely they're going to be harder to find on the secondary market after they retire. There's been a few things like a couple of years ago we had a Halloween set that matched a punch, and I've had so many requests to get that Halloween set, and it's just not widely available because not as many people do celebrate Halloween. So fewer were purchased, so there's fewer on the secondary market. The people that purchase them want to keep them, and that's the same with the moose. Like, a lot of people are going to feel attached to the moose. Like, I'm even a kind of attached to the moose. I don't know if I will sell my moose because it's Canadian. It has some Canadian appeal to it, so I don't know if I'll be wanting to let it go. So if you want to get your own, don't delay. And I also have two more projects. They're 3D projects later on this week that I'm sure you're going to love. So don't delay in getting the Merry Moose bundle. Okay, that's my little PSA for the morning. Didn't mean to go on a rant. That just happened right then and there. I get the feeling sometimes with certain stamp sets and bundles that they will be harder to find later on, and I just want to alert you to that. Okay, today's also Casing Tuesday, and today's card we're copying is this one. I love this layout. It is easy. It's very, very easy. Now, you don't have to have all the frou-frou going on. Like, I didn't put that ribbon strip in the background, but basically this one has some background paper, some stamping, a little punch shape. So I thought it would work really well for this bundle. Now, here is a layout if you just need some help with the sizing. My dimensions are a little bit different, so if you want those dimensions, just go to the description down below, and you'll be able to get my measurements. Also, I have the sketch and the card on my blog, so you can see them. I know sometimes it's hard when you're watching a video, you're like, I want that information, and it's gone. But I put almost everything that you're going to need directly on my blog post, so you can get it. All right. I know there's a few people here, and Catherine says she also loves the moose, and the moose is awesome. Let me show you my card, and along the way, I often share tips and stuff on how I create my card. Things that might be obvious to some people aren't obvious to others. So, it's always interesting to see how a card comes together. So let me switch my cameras over. Okay, so this is the card that we are making today. I love this 12 tidings paper. This one is one of the more neutral ones in the background. If you looked at the paper and saw, ooh, it's really got a lot of those scenes. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. Well, it's also got some nice buffalo check paper and some nice stripe paper, so it's neutral. The nice thing about this paper, it's garden green on one side and real red on the other. So it's just a really nice like one color paper that you can work with. So it's nice, especially for beginner stampers. It's like a little easier perhaps to work with. And I love this card. I love it because it's not super hard, and like the layers, the die cutting layers, if you don't have a die cut machine, you can just cut similar layers and make them rectangles, and they won't have this nice stitched edging, but it will still look good. So let's delve in. Oh, before I begin, this is the Merry Moose bundle. You can buy the stamp set and the punch separately, but you will definitely want this as a bundle because number one, you save 10%. Two, even like this moose, it's got a nice outline, but it looks a lot better if you have the detail of the moose with the punch. So using them in conjunction is great. And then you're also going to want the greeting Merry Christmas, which is, I think it's kind of, I love punny greetings, so it's just kind of cute. And so you will want it alone just for that little greeting. The other thing, I just mentioned the rectangles. I'm using the stitch rectangle framelets. Okay, so let me show you first how I stamped this outside area here. So I'm going to take my rectangle. I have the measurements for the rectangle I used on my blog, so you'll know which one of these to use. So I won't mention that here. I'm going to use the garden green ink pad, and I'm going to use the bigger of the two tree stamps. So I'll ink this up, and I want to stamp this centered from top to bottom and pretty close to the edge without going on to the stitching. Let me stand up. I always get my head into the camera and I hate that. When I watch it get back, I'm like, why did I do that? So I'm going to stamp, lift up. I'm going to stamp down again without re-inking, just a little higher and just a bit over. Like that. So that kind of gives a little bit of a faded look to the garden green, and isn't that simple? Like, I've just created the background and I'm basically done with that. I kept it very, very simple. All right, let's get the moose in here. I've got a piece of crumb cake cardstock, and I'm going to take Early Espresso ink because it's kind of dark without being black. And I've got my moose stamp, the one that has the detail. There's actually two moose stamps in the set. One is a bold one, and this one is just the detail. So let me get good inking on that, and then we'll take the moose punch and we'll punch this little guy out. It's easy to center if you haven't used one of our punches before. It's easier to center if you are on the back side of the punch, and you can kind of just clamp it down without punching all the way through, and that will allow you to shift it. If you're a little bit off, you can kind of have a look. Okay, that looks good. And now I can punch it all the way through. Isn't that easy? Like, there I have a moose. I don't have to fussy cut him out. It's just so simple. Okay, before I adhere this guy down, let's get this little greeting over here on the side. So the rectangle, the stitch rectangle framelets come with a bunch of different sizes, and I thought maybe I could use this size, but it's quite a bit bigger than my greeting and it didn't look very good. It kind of just floated in there. So what do I do in that case? I take one of my smaller dies. Let me grab my big shot real quick here. Another little tip, let me just grab this so I can show you. With your stitch rectangle framelets or anything that has stitching or little holes on it, what I do is I keep a piece of wax paper right beside my die cutting area, and I just take my die and I rub it over the cutting side over the wax paper. It helps release the die so much more easily. I'm going to take a piece of very vanilla cardstock, and I'm going to do a couple of things. I just lost my link under here. Okay, so I've got this on here. I'm going to run this piece through on the diagonal because that way it doesn't do that clunky noise. It's kind of running through on a point, so it's just a lot easier to run through. So we'll run it through as a whole piece first and throw away the extra, and then we've got this piece. Now I want to shorten it, so I'll just take, I want it to be about around 1.5 inches. So I'm just going to take my ruler here and I'm going to measure over 1.5 inches from the edge and just make myself a little pencil mark just as a guide. You could eyeball this too, but if you just want to know exactly what I did, is this in camera? Then I'm going to add my die onto here. My pencil mark is just on the inside right here, and I want to make sure when I run this through that this is somewhat centered. So you're going to see that the very vanilla piece is a little smaller than the actual die, but just as long as it's, you know, somewhat centered, you should be good. And then we'll just run this through again. So this is just going to make that side smaller, and it's also going to add a line of stitching for me. So there it is. And if you you did this side, actually I kind of like this one almost better because on this side I lost the corners. So they're identical in size. So if you get it perfectly on the line, it might follow the stitching and look good. Sometimes I've done it and it hasn't, the opposite side hasn't looked good. But if you get two kind of identical rectangles, just choose the one that you like better, right? So I'll choose that one. I'll choose the one I like better. Okay, let me get that out of here. So that's how I shorten up my dies, and that gives you a lot more versatility for making different die sizes or different stitched dies. Like you can make these into different size squares then, right? Or shorten them however you want. So that's kind of cool. So now I'm going to take my Merry Christmas and my Garden Green ink pad, and I'll just ink this up. I'm going to have to stand up again, otherwise my head will be in the frame again. And I'll just kind of eyeball this onto here. There we go. So it's all starting to come together. Okay, so let's build the card now. I've got my card base, which is 8.5 by 5.5, and then I scored it in half at the 4.25 inch mark. I will fold it along the score line. I love scoring my card bases rather than folding them because that way you get like just such a nice crisp fold, and it makes it look professional, because we want our cards, even though we're making them ourselves, we want people to look at them and say, oh, did you make this? Or did you buy it at one of those fancy card shops, right? You want that kind of mystery going on, right? You want it to look good enough that you could sell it. So then I've got a piece of the 12 tidings paper, and this is 5 1/4 by 4 inches. And I'll take this and just add some tombow on the back. I could have also done it in red, but I thought green kind of just speaks to me. So I grew up in British Columbia, and we have a lot of pine trees in British Columbia. I grew up on the side of a mountain with lots of pine trees. So that makes me happy. Now, we didn't have, I don't think I've ever seen a moose live before. So it's not like Canada is overrun with moose. It's just that it is, there are a lot of moose, just not where I grew up. We had deer for sure, but not moose. Oh my gosh, do we ever have deer where my parents live? They're all over the place. Maybe you have that too. So then I'm going to take this piece and I'm just going to add it and center it. Yes, I'm going to be boring and center it. So I'll just look at my top and my bottom, and that looks about right. And add this here. And then I want to overlap my moose a little bit. I want to have this here. And I'm going to add a bow as well. So you want a little bit of space in between the two. So let's add my moose first. I want my moose, I kind of kept him, he looks the best if you position him at the bottom tree line here. So he kind of looks good if he's just kind of coming, looks like he's coming out of the forest, right? So that looks kind of cool. And then I want to add this so it's just kind of sticking out a little bit, also kind of on the level of the moose. So let's add that over here. All right, the last thing that I did, I wanted a little bow, and I had a little bow out of linen thread. And here, I'll show you my little bow. Let me grab it. So I had a little bow, I tied it a linen thread and I stuck it down. And it looks okay, but like I don't know, I just needed a pop of color. But we don't have a lot of thread right now that's in different colors. We have the white baker's twine and we have the linen thread. And I'm like, how do I make this pop a little bit? That's where my Stampin Blends comes in. So I just took a scrap piece of paper. Now this can be a little bit messy, but I'll try and make it less messy for you. So I'll just fold over a little scrap piece of paper. And I've got my little bow here, and I'm going to use my brush tip on my Real Red Dark, and I'm just going to come along and just color it with my my marker. And then I'll turn it around, trying not to touch it because, yeah, you will get ink all over your fingers. Ask me how I know. And you can flip it. I'm going to use tweezers. Flip it. And I don't see, like if you see any spots that look obviously kind of still brown, you can go ahead and hit them with the marker. But in the meantime, if you want this to dry quicker, I just put it between two pieces of paper and I just kind of do this, and that helps it like dry off. Now I would, if I were making a bunch of these, I would just finish them and let them dry for 5 minutes on the side. I probably don't even take 5 minutes. But I did my bow last night to make sure it was dry. When I touched it today, I made an extra one and colored it. And so then I can just take a little dab of glue and I'm going to stick my knot right into that glue, and I'm just going to hold it down for a few seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Lift up. And there is my card. Now there's a little bit of stuff right there. I just don't want it to transfer to my card. So there's the card. It's not a hard card, but sometimes cards that aren't hard, that are easier to make, are difficult to design. So that's why just having a look at the pieces of this card, not a lot of hard elements on it, but a couple of things that you want to keep in mind. Stamp off for the second tree, which is kind of nice. How to shorten this little guy right here, the little framelit, and how to color some neutral thread, baker's twine, linen thread with the Stampin Blends. So you can have some more colors than just the plain colors that we have in our selection. So what did you think of that? Let me scroll. I didn't look at the comments as I was going on. Oh, Karen, you finally have Tuesday off. That's so nice that you could join me. And hello, Connie, all the way from Denmark. That's so cool that you joined me. And Renee, who's late but is still here. If you want, you can watch the beginning of the video for the replay. I love Casing Tuesday because each week we get to share our cards, and you can share your card as well. Just go to the link below on our Facebook page and you can see what did everyone else do with, let me see, with this challenge. This was the original, and this is mine. So you can see different but the same. I've got kind of the same layers. So what did everyone else do? And I actually, this morning I was really busy. Last night we got an email from Stampin Up, and I earned the incentive trip that's taking place next summer. And so we had a choice. We can either book our own flights, or we can let the travel company, book their flight for you. Like, we have an allowance. And so last night I kind of got into with my husband, and we were looking at flights and stuff, and the night just whisked by, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh no, I have to make a card for tomorrow. And so this morning my desk was not empty of stuff. It was completely full of things that I have been working on. My new moose projects coming up, so you'll be excited about my moose projects. I'm excited about them. And I'll have project sheets for those 3D things too. So make sure you sign up for my email list, because I've started this a couple weeks ago. For my 3D projects that are free projects, I'm making a little project sheet for them. And it's kind of just a nice way for you to be able to get all the information on one page. Now, I'm not doing it for my cards, because cards are a little bit more straightforward, and I can just put the measurements on my blog, and it's easier to work from a photo. But for a 3D project, it's kind of a little harder. So I'm making project sheets for those. But anyway, yeah, so I had like this desk covered with everything, and it was just awful. So I was like rushing around last minute, tidying everything up. And this time I didn't just shove everything to the side. I actually tidied up. And then all of a sudden I look up and it's like, you have 5 minutes left. That clock is counting down. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so late. So anyway, I managed to get here almost on the right time. But anyway, I hope you will join us in the Facebook Live challenge, or for Casing Tuesday, and post a card so that we can all see it. And remember, it is a great way to try out new layouts, to join in a group. And we do it every week. We've been doing it for a few years, so it's not something that is going away. It's there. And you can do it every week, and it's a good way to use your supplies and try something new. Okay, well, I don't see any questions about my card. I think it was pretty straightforward. Join me. I will be doing my lives for my 3D projects on YouTube. If you're already a subscriber on my YouTube channel, you can also, when you go there, there's a little bell. If you click on that, then you can get alerts for when I go live. But I will be going, I have 3 things that I want to post still this week, and I'm not sure the order yet. So look on my YouTube page. Once I've got the live posted, it will start counting down to my live project. I will try and get those up, you know, at least 12 hours before, so you know what I am going to be posting, and so you can join me live if you want. All right, guys, have a great day, and I hope you check out my Merry Moose tutorials that are coming up later this week. All right, guys, bye-bye.